call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of the recording processes is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Kaler.
Here.
Colterman.
Present.
Miller.
Here.
Streisand.
Here.
Hanyu.
Here.
Bergen.
Here.
Wilken.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
All right, thank you. First item this evening is commendation for Officer Pilcher for a life-saving event. Chief Peters, would you like to start off?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, good evening, everybody, and happy holidays. I am excited to be here tonight for the purpose of recognizing a couple of our officers and a deputy sheriff for a life-saving event that happened back on October 1st of this year. I would like to introduce Becca Newmiller from the HHS department. She'll kind of lead us into why we're here, and we'll kind of go from there. Becca, would you like to say a few words?
Everybody can hear me here. I've never been accused of being quiet, so I think it'll be all right. So,
Welcome.
well, thank you very much for having us. So, back in 2021, the Leora M. and Harry B. Helmsley Charitable Trust awarded the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services a $6.4 million grant for the distribution of over 2,500 automatic external defibrillators, the AEDs, to be placed in law enforcement patrol cars across the state. We've been asked why AEDs in patrol cars. So, American Heart Association research shows a significantly higher rate of survival for cardiac arrest patients defibrillated by law enforcement officers who are generally first on scene, especially in our rural areas that we have here. Every minute a patient is in cardiac arrest without high quality CPR and defibrillation, their odds of survival actually go down 10%. So an officer arriving on scene just a few minutes early, 1 or 2 minutes earlier than the rescue squad actually can increase the odds of survival dramatically, as demonstrated by Officer Pilcher and the 2 other officers that we have here. To date in Nebraska, we have had 352 AED uses by law enforcement officers as part of that grant. Out of those, we've had 47 saves. So that's in which victims of sudden cardiac arrest were discharged from the hospital to continue their life with their family and friends, and that's a really big amount. On behalf of Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, I want to extend our thanks to not only Officer Pilcher, but really to the entire Seward Police Department. Their willingness to take part of this grant shows the level of commitment that they have to the Seward community and those that pass through it. And with those words, I'm going to turn it back to Chief Peters.
Thank you, Becca. And I would also include the Seward County Sheriff's Office as well. I believe all their patrol vehicles are equipped with the AEDs as well from that same grant. So now we have a little background on the AEDs. I'd like to read to you a letter of commendation to Officer Pilcher. On October 1st, 2023, at about 8:55 hours, that'll be about 9 o'clock in the morning for those of you that aren't familiar with military time, you responded to Moffett Park regarding a medical emergency, near the pickleball courts. Seward Fire and Rescue were also dispatched, but you were the first to arrive at the scene. Upon arrival, you quickly assessed the situation and determined the patient was in cardiac distress. Without hesitation, you began life-saving measures, including CPR and the timely application of the AED. In total, you administered 3 shots from the AED, along with chest compressions, until you relieved by members of the Seward Fire Department. This individual is alive today because of your quick and decisive actions. Please know that your actions did not go unnoticed, as the subject's family reached out to us soon afterwards to express their heartfelt gratitude. Your actions reflect favorably upon yourself as well as the Seward Police Department. And on behalf of the Seward Police Department command staff and your fellow officers, you are commended for your exceptional performance. Respectfully, Brian W. Peters. Officer Pelcher, if you would mind coming forward. With while the mayor's coming up, I would like to take a moment to introduce Mike Stewart, who that day was the party in distress at the Moffett Park. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out for this this evening as well. Obviously very special, very emotional for all of us. Also on a side note, Mike is a retired lieutenant with the Omaha Police Department. Has since been drugged in on a part-time basis as a school resource officer, but we're really excited to have him here with us. If we'll just take, oh, excuse me.
Do we read this thing?
You want to read it? Sure.
Okay. This is a certificate of merit for Officer Pilcher. The city of Seward hereby recognizes Officer Zachary Pilcher for heroic actions taken on October 1, 2023. You were first to arrive at the scene of a medical emergency at Moffett Park and found an adult male in cardiac distress. You quickly assessed the situation, delivered CPR, and administered 3 shots from the AED before being relieved by the Seward Volunteer Fire Department. This individual is alive today as witness to your ability and willingness to serve others in their time of need. The certificate of merit is tendered with the utmost respect and sincere appreciation.
Yeah, I just got a video.
Oh,
Maybe
we'll come back one
this way.
quick photo.
Sorry. Hey, which way do you want them oriented? This way, that way? I'll let you lead the way. I'll do a picture too. Go ahead. You got first. You should.
Oh, like on signing day?
And then just real briefly to follow up, also happy to have with us here tonight, Officer Bryce Johnson with the Seward Police Department and Sergeant Jordan Legband with the Seward County Sheriff's Office. Officer Johnson also responded to the scene that day, and Sergeant Legband, I believe that was your AED that was used. So we want to be sure to give them acknowledgement as well. Also that following the incident, when Mr. Stewart was transported to the hospital, that Officer Johnson made sure that he was never alone. That we were with him until the helicopter eventually came and transported him to another hospital. So just to go, just to kind of show the brotherhood, sisterhood of law enforcement, of always making sure that we take care of our own. So, thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes for this presentation. And anybody have any questions before we go?
Officer Pilcher like to say anything, or did you want to say anything?
It was a group effort with Sergeant Legband, Officer Johnson, the rescue crew, the people on scene. You know, we worked as a team, and Officer Johnson went above and beyond trying to get Mike identified so we can get the family notified. Like Chief said, he stayed with them all the way through till he got on the helicopter. You know, it's a team effort here in Seward, and that's one of the reasons why I love working here.
Thank you.
Mike, do you have anything to
Yeah, I'd just like to say, thanks for having me here, and obviously thanks to these officers, but your entire police department and fire department. You guys should be really proud that your officers are trained so well, take that training serious, and are able to put it into action in order to help people, not just with me, but there's no doubt in my mind that your community is a better place because of all the officers that you have working here. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Nothing else? We'll go ahead and lead you to your meeting. Important city business going on.
You're all welcome to stay, but we understand to be very things. Next item we have is the consent agenda.
Move to. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
All right, thank you. Next under public hearings, the first public hearing is presentation and discussion of functioning and progress of the Seward Economic Development Plan. Greg.
Sort of kind of timely that we finally got to this. Twice a year, I deliver on behalf of what we call the CARC, which is the Citizen Advisory Review Committee. This is a required committee that oversees LB 840. We have the LB 840 Review Committee. This is another group of 5 appointed members of our community that more look at it from a financial standpoint and making sure that we're just meeting the baseline restrictions and requirements of LB 840. Yes, the CARC is required by statute. So they met back in August to review the function and progress of the plan. Meeting consisted of discussions about the following items. An LB 840 activity report was distributed to the CARC in advance of the meeting, and I walked them through the recent activity from January 1st, 2022 through July 31st of 23. And there was no specific questions. A copy of the general ledger reports, including a report of all transactions from 1/1/22 to 7/31/23 was distributed. The CARC felt that all transactions listed in the financial reports appeared to be appropriate. And then I also noted that the program would come due for a reauthorization vote by the citizens of Seward in the fall of 2023. As you're well aware, last week we had that vote by mail was due. LB 840 was approved by the voters by a little over 80%. So a very favorable response, and so we'll continue on with that program for an additional 10 years at the current financing and funding rate. Just note that the CRC does not audit nor does it verify the numbers submitted to it in the general ledger reports, as their understanding that these accounts are audited during the normal overall audit that is done by the city's financial records each and every year. So I can answer any questions you have, but that is the report, and we'll continue on and we'll meet back together with them in February to look at the next round of stuff that we've been up to.
Any questions for Greg? Seeing none, it is a public hearing, so I'll open up the public comment portion of the public hearing. If anyone from the public wishes to comment on this item, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one wishing to comment, I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing and return to the council for any additional questions or comments. Is there just a motion to approve it or accept it? Do we do anything with this?
I just get the report.
Okay, so if there's nothing further, we will go on to the next item. Okay. Item number 2 is also a public hearing, consideration of a text amendment to the City of Seward Unified Land Development Ordinance, Chapter 410, Article 32, Supplemental Development Regulations, Section 8, Fence Regulations. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This amendment was brought about by, if you're familiar, Black Hills Energy in the rail campus had to install a temporary gas facility. In order to protect their facility, they needed a 6-foot fence and barbed wire, 3-strand barbed wire above the fence. As we looked at city code, when Mr. Butcher, Administrator Butcher called us, said, no, we don't allow barbed wire anywhere other than zoning I-2 in the city of Seward. The only I-2 we have in the city of Seward is Tenneco, and they do have barbed wire. So, Administrator Butcher asked us to look around, see where we had barbed wire, and lo and behold, both water towers, the water plant, every substation, electric substation, the state of Nebraska facility, Norris Public Power facility, all had barbed wire, none of which were in an I-2 zoning. So taking that into mind, we said, well, we've got to make some changes, so this is what we came up with. We also took the opportunity to tweak a few things just to make the zoning code more corresponding with the actual city code references to fencing. So with that, we lowered from 30 inches to 24 inches. The governing regulations, city code called for nothing over 24 inches in sight triangles, but zoning code didn't regulate anything till over 30 inches. That didn't make sense. So if we're only gonna allow 24, then we need to regulate anything over 24 inches. So we made that change. Under residential fences, we made a change. We added a maximum height of 4 foot in the front yard and 1 foot behind the alley. Again, just corresponding with what was already in city code but was not in zoning code. Then we got to the barbed wire under residential uses. As I said, we looked at where we had it, so we made a change. We looked at any public utility, city, county, state, and I-2 zoning to allow barbed wire above the fencing. 6 foot minimum height to the bottom strand, everything on their property, nothing in the right of way. As we went on down, again, we talked more about barbed wire where it's allowed, made that change there. We then added a section for agricultural fences. Just talked about the maximum height of 6 feet. Setback has to be out of the right of way and on your property. And again, barbed wire in agricultural areas can be used for ranging livestock, surrounding utilities, and again, city, county, and state facility, and airports. I forgot to mention airport. We do have barbed wire around the airport. With that, that's pretty much the changes to that code. It was recommended 8-0 by Planning Commission, and before you ask, no, razor wire is a no.
I was gonna ask.
Just for some guide pointing tonight, the reason that this one is a public hearing, and then you'll have 2 more of these for city code on the agenda. This is the ULDO, Uniform Land Development Ordinance. It's our zoning ordinance. It requires, anytime we amend it, to have a public hearing. When you amend just general city code, you do not require it doesn't require a public hearing. So we kind of have a mixed bag, but we want it all unified so that everything matched.
Any other questions or comments from the council? It is a public hearing, so I can open up the public comment portion of the public hearing. If anyone from the public wishes to comment on this item, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one wishing to comment, I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing, return to council for any additional questions or comments. And this is, 2A is what you're asking action on, right? Consideration of the ordinance to amend the ULDO, chapter 14, article 32, section 8. So if anyone would like to introduce the ordinance, or if you have any other questions or comments?
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Okay. An ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Seward, chapter 410, zoning and subdivision, article 32, supplemental development regulations, to amend fence regulations, to repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, to provide for an effective date, to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form. The ordinance has been read by title, it is designated as ordinance number 2023-27, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
Also move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Again, this is ordinance number 2023-27. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2023-27 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your vote. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Thank you. Next under administrative actions are items related to city code fence regulations. In case you didn't get enough fence. Our last item. This is item 1 related to the fence regulations. We also have items A and B, which are both ordinances.
And again, these are city code under building construction, fence regulations, and under nuisances and offenses, chapter 290 of obstructions. The only changes are, we took the barbed wire definition and again, put in there that it was allowed in I-2, city, county, state, public utilities, and airport, just to mimic what was in zoning code 410. That was the only changes. Again, recommended 8-0,
And still no razor wire.
and still no raise.
Any questions or comments from the council? Would you like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Alright. An ordinance to repeal and replace the municipal code of the city of Seward, chapter 225, building construction, article 13, fence regulations, to amend fence regulations, to repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, to provide for an effective date, to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2023-28, and the title is hereby approved. And a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright, this is ordinance number 2023-28. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2023-28 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright. Then item B.
Yeah, the fence regulation.
Right. Is there any discussion on that, or does someone just want to introduce it?
Tim already,
You covered item B, right?
I did.
Yeah, so I don't know if there are any other questions or comments from the council, or I'd ask someone to introduce the ordinance on item 1B.
I introduce.
Alright. An ordinance to repeal and replace the municipal code of the city of Seward, chapter 290, offenses, article 8, obstructions, section 2, prohibited fences, to amend requirements for prohibited fences, to repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, to provide for an effective date, to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2023-29, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
This is ordinance number 2023-29. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
Also move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2023-29 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Next, we have item number 2, consideration of a change order number 3 to a contract with Garing Construction and Ready Mix Company Incorporated for the East Seward Street Improvement Project in the amount of $75,285. Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much. So our project on East Seward is nearing completion. Obviously, it's been open, well used for a number of months now. We do have a few outstanding items that will trail into next spring. However, we do have a list of items here for a change order. Primarily, these were items that were encountered during the middle of construction. Something encountered, we were called out to make a decision as to how we want to proceed. The change order was just a more or less a laundry list of items that had not been billed up until this date. I did create a 4-page memo where I organized it in terms of various tasks. That'll help us in the future to document. It'll be very difficult over time to recall exactly what was expended on what items as well. So there's 11 different items that were subdivided. Some of these are omissions from design. Some of these are just absolute unknowns that until we dug something up and looked at it, it was difficult to understand what we're actually deciding for. And so with that, the total for those items comes to $75,285. It's roughly 3% of the approved contract amount, including the previous 2 change orders. So as a reminder, those change orders essentially were some smaller items. We're extending water main where we had a good price for the Prairie View development, so that's completed. And so this represents what we certainly believe to be the end of the changes for this project. So with that, I ask you to approve the submittal. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Mike. Do you have any questions or comments from the council? Now we just need a simple motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wolfman, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Item number 3, consideration of a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign and designate city engineer Onaby as city street superintendent for purposes of the annual year-end NDOT certification. Correct.
Yes, every year we have to certify to the state who our street highway superintendent is, city street superintendent in this case. This is a title as designated by NDOT for purposes of essentially making sure you have somebody qualified to look at streets and roads projects within your municipality or on staff or hired. Previously in the past, this has actually been Julie Ogden with JEO, but we learned in working with Mike that a licensed municipal engineer can do it without having to go through all the certifications. He doesn't have to take all the testing that we would have to require of one of our other staff members that didn't have certifications and professional degrees that Mike has. And so we're able to designate Mike in this position. He just has to fill out a form and get things turned in. And so our recommendation is just do that and not bother Julie Ogden anymore. So we usually have to pay her a nominal amount each year to look over the 1 and 6 year plan and maybe answer some questions that we have. So this is just a savings and keeps it all in-house. I can answer any other questions you have, or Mike can as well.
Any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'd ask someone to introduce the resolution.
I'll introduce the resolution.
All right, the resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2023-22. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
Also moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wolfman, Kaler, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
All right, thank you. Item 4, item update related to the Wellness Center. Greg.
Yes, the biggest things for the Wellness Center, we got rebar delivered. I know we have Executive Director Brazy back there. They continue to work on they'll work on it until the weather pushes them out. So they got plenty to do up there. And obviously we have no frost in the ground, so good weather. But the biggest thing that we do have is pursuant to the presentation that was made by Joel last time, we were able to work with an army of attorneys, including Kelly, to put together the ordinance for consideration tonight. This is essentially the last piece of the puzzle on the municipal side for the long-term debt of the Wellness Center. And so we were able to, in putting all our modeling together, working with Seward Changing the Game, to look at what we believe to be the cash flow of donations, grants, funds, foundational dollars, and otherwise, that the obligation on the city for the long term will end up being approximately $9.8 million. Could be a little less, could be a little more. We had to get through all the construction change orders and things like that. But we feel confident that that is the approximate number. By being underneath that $10 million benchmark, that allowed us to go to local financing. And so we worked with Jones Bank and Cattle Bank together to put together a financing project here that we will be given a construction loan with a line of credit essentially up to $9.8 million. We will borrow against that, and so we're not borrowing money that we're not using at the initial end of the project, thus we're not paying interest on it. And we will work through the project, bring it to its complete completion, I believe at the end of '25. And then we will move into a long-term financing at that time. If we choose to look at a different obligation or move to a municipal bond because bond rates have improved for us, and we don't think that we'll want to move, but that gives us an opportunity to take a look at that, and we can do so. But this, as was analyzed by Joel and myself a number of weeks ago, is the best option. So this ordinance allows us to do that. By approving this tonight, there's also a proclamation that goes with it that allows the mayor to declare that essentially it's an emergency. The reason we're doing that is so that we can take out the line of credit and not wait for 15 days. We'll take out the line of credit and make our first withdrawal before the end of 2023. The reason we do that is the $10 million that we utilize for that to get tax exempt financing will count in calendar year 2023, so that we can do it if we need to do another bond for a street or some other project in '24. This bonding didn't count against our limitations on that. And so we want to take that money out and qualify for '23. Kind of worked out in our favor with the timing. If we would have had to do this back in February or something, we may have gotten ourselves caught up in loaning something else out, and then these would not become tax exempt bonds or lending. So it all kind of worked out in our favor, and we're excited about the opportunity and also be able to work with our local banks to finance it. And so just consideration approval of this, and then we'll get it going, and we'll have that line of credit available. We probably won't access it much more until we believe mid-spring, because we have sufficient funds built up already to cash flow the initial parts of the project. And so we won't start even accessing this much more other than this first go around this month. Answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments for Greg? Otherwise, I would ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Alright. An ordinance authorizing a municipal improvement bond in the principal amount of not to exceed $9,800,000 to provide financing for a portion of the costs of the Seward Wellness Center to be owned by the city, prescribing the terms and form of such bond, providing for payment of the interest on and principal of such bond, providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet or electronic form, and related matters. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2023-30, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya, Coltrane, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
This is ordinance number 2023-30. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
Also move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2023-30 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your vote. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya, Coltrane, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
This is the last ordinance for this evening, so I need one final motion to make all the ordinances a part of the permanent record.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Tanya, Coltrane, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright, next we have the city administrator's report.
Yeah, a number of items kind of related to projects that are going on, obviously a big one for, especially Joel and myself, was the financing and finalizing the bonds. On our next meeting, I believe Kelly will have a lease that will be between Seward Changing the Game and the city of Seward that kind of aligns our relationship for the next couple of years as we work through some of those grants and requirements and stuff like that. I think that was pretty much wound down today, so we'll bring that on the second. We have an opportunity at the golf course coming up that we've been working on a lease, and so we're excited to hopefully bring that one to you, but that's another one I've been working with Cody, Bob, Adam, and Joel on. So hopefully that will come up in January. Lots of end of the year items, still continuing to work with Treasurer Sydney Golden on a number of items, just kind of getting her up to speed, looking at some training opportunities, maybe reaching out to Nick Wolf to just kind of come back in and help kind of demonstrate what some of those financing items were as we work through that. Obviously audit's been completed. Had some discussions about some strategic planning opportunities through MPPD and looking at that. I'd say the last one, I just want to do a commendation to the cemetery guys, Ken and Chris out there, Brent Peterson, Bob Core overlooks them, but last night they did have their annual event in remembrance. Myself, Councilmember Tanez was there as well. They did a very, very good job. It's quite a neat opportunity to go out there and visit with and be amongst family members who've lost loved ones or in remembrance of loved ones, and they do a very dignified, with what we give them. Again, we're out in a shop for a cemetery, and they do an incredible job bringing in pastors and different religious leaders to come in and just kind of do one more respectful offering for those out at the cemetery, and it was very nicely done. So I just really want to commend them for the work that they do out there, because it's a place that unfortunately a lot of people go out of sorrow and sadness, and so they try to turn that around and make it a pleasant place that's inviting and welcoming to come, especially when you want to remember your loved ones. So big props to Kent and Chris out there. With that, I can answer any other questions you have about the city administrator's report.
Any questions or comments for Greg? Let's ask for a motion to accept the
Move to
report.
accept the city administrator's report.
Second.
With a motion and a second to accept. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanez, Coulterman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright, do you have any future requests for council agenda items or administrative action? Seeing none. Jonathan, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
What's going on in our community?
Well, a couple of things. One, I just want to say thank you for the support of the LD 840 special election efforts. Just resounding support there, and so just appreciate all the efforts of council members and community leaders to help to bring that to successful fruition. Also, kind of the big event that's coming up is our annual awards banquet, which is on the 5th Monday of January, January 29th. Many of you have come to participate in that. That's a great opportunity to support and celebrate our community leaders and business leaders across the county. And it's just an opportunity for people to connect, network, and really just celebrate together. So I would ask that you consider purchasing a ticket, maybe a table, to join us for that evening of celebration Monday, January 29th. And with that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you, Jonathan. With that, we have a strategy session.
I move that city council go into closed session with the mayor, city administrator, city attorney, Jonathan Jank, and the city clerk for the protection of the public interest and to discuss real estate interests at the Seward Rail campus and to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance for a period not to exceed 30 minutes.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Tanez, Coulterman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright, the council is voted to go into closed session at 7:39 p.m. for the protection of the public interest to discuss real estate interests at the Seward Rail campus to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance. No formal action will be taken. We are in closed session.